Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today, we are going to be breaking down the Providence Class Carrier slash Destroyer for Star Wars Armada. This is a monstrous ship. It is a mainstay of the Separatist Navy. It is large and in charge and has a significant presence anytime it shows up on the battlefield. Now, you may have seen this ship in Star Wars Episode 3 or in the Clone Wars. Whether it was Admiral Trench in charge or General Grievous, it always seems to house somebody very, very important. So we're going to be talking about this ship today, specifically how it applies to Star Wars Armada, how you can best use it to take advantage of its strengths, and different ways that you can build this ship. Now, if you guys are new here to the channel, we do a lot of Star Wars and Star Wars gaming. We're also doing 12 Days of Life Day right now. All you have to do to win one of our fabulous giveaways that are going on all this month is all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. Plus, if you'd like to learn more, get involved, and discuss with the community, we've got lots of links down in the description below. I'd love to have you join our Discord. We're very family friendly. Have a lot of people in there to answer your questions, to talk about strategies, builds, Star Wars in general, even other games other than Star Wars Armada like X-Wing or Legion, or just chit-chat, Star Wars in general. But check out the links in the description below for more information. With all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the Providence, because this is a bad boy. So the Providence Class Carrier and Class Dreadnought, it comes in two varieties, right? The Carrier and the Dreadnought. There's two main ways that we'll see this ship, and like the names suggest, the Carrier is a little bit better at carrying fighters, and the Dreadnought's a little bit better at causing dread. But they are both very good at just about everything. It's a very well-rounded type of ship, but it comes at a cost, and it's over 100 points. Both versions of this ship are 105 points, so they're going to take up a significant chunk of your fleet's value in Star Wars Armada. Now, this is a moderately fast ship, having speeds 1, 2, and 3 available to it. While it's significantly mobile at speed 1, and actually pretty darn mobile at speed 2, once it increases to speed 3, it begins to lose a lot of its ability to turn. So if it's going fast, it's probably going straight. That's usually how this ship works. So navigation is going to be very important to a ship like this, but all commands will be with engineering value of 4 and squadron value of 4. It's going to be good for just about every command, especially squadron engineering and navigation, while leaving maybe concentrate fire as maybe the least important command to this particular ship. Now, for defense tokens, we have 1 brace, 1 evade, 1 salvo, and 1 contain. So kind of spread across, but salvo being the important addition of the newest type of defense token that showed up, just prior to the Clone Wars, but is very prominent in Clone Wars era ships. It has hull value of 9, and it has a lot of shields. We've got 5 shields on the front, 3 shields on the sides, and 2 shields in the rear. That is a lot of damage points to chew through to try to take this thing down. We do have various different upgrade slots available, and we'll talk about those when we get into the specifics of the ship, but it can serve a variety of roles, and being as chunky and defensive as it is, it makes for a fantastic flagship in either version. Now, as far as the profile for the ship itself, it does have very, very wide broadside arcs without having too narrow of a front arc. The front arc is a little bit more narrow, so this thing generally has a little bit more firepower out of its broadsides, its left and right side, but double arcing is also very, very possible with this particular ship. And of course, the broadsides kind of work a little better since the broadsides tend to be a little bit stronger, but it's still, again, the dice armament for this ship is very well spread out and kind of lends itself to a very well-rounded ship. It's sort of like the sideways Venator in some ways, if you were to do some comparisons to the Galactic Republic. Now, let's break down into these ships a little bit more, and let's talk about the Providence Class Carrier. Now, this has all the things that we've talked about already that the ship itself has, with the 9 hull, the same defense tokens, speed, cost, and shields, and even command, squadron, and engineering. This is one of the few ships that really doesn't have a difference in command, squadron, and engineering between its two varieties. The squadron value is going to be 4 across the board. But what makes this one a carrier is going to be certain other things that we're going to talk about. But let's start about the top of the card first. We're going to notice that it has an anti-squadron value of 2 black dice, giving it some excellent flak firepower against squadrons attacking it at close range. Now, the dice armament is a double rainbow on the sides. We've got, it's got 2 red, 2 blue, and 2 black, making this thing very, very deadly at close range, but less of a threat at long range, but still having consistent firepower all around. It does have a smaller representation of that same firepower in the front. It loses 1 blue, so it has a little bit less firepower in the front, again, leading itself to want to be in the broadsides a little bit more, but still deadly from the front. Now, its rear arc has 3 defense die, or sorry, 3 dice, 1 of each color, and that's good because of the defense token salvo. Having 3 dice in the rear printed on a card is always a good thing when you're thinking about using salvo. And this ship does have some upgrades that are going to allow us to improve our salvo quite a bit. So let's talk about some of those upgrades and what makes this ship such a good carrier. Well, first off, we do have officer, like all ships do. We also have defensive retrofit. That's going to do a couple of great things for this ship. It's going to make it a very good flagship, a great place to put your admiral. Also, possibly a great place to be your main carrier, since you'll be able to ensure this ship stays alive. We've also got fleet command, which is going to be good for anything that your fleet is based on. There's a lot of different fleet command options, and this is a permanent fleet command ability for your fleet, so really, really nice to have that ability. We also have the offensive retrofit over here, and that is going to be a good upgrade slot for carriers. That's one of the things that's going to really help this put that 4 squadron command to expert use, is having the ability to maybe hit those squadrons at even long range, or one of the various other offensive retrofits that support squadrons that exist in the game. As far as armament, again, we did say this was well-rounded. Well, it does have some defensive and support upgrades like we've already seen. We've also got the big 3 for offensive upgrades as far as your dice, your batteries. You've got a ordnance, you've got ion cannons, and turbo lasers. All 3. It's like kind of the holy trinity of offense right there, and it matches because the ship has dice in all 3 colors respectively: black, blue, and then red for turbo lasers. So you've got whatever kind of attack profile you want to go for, you can build it for this ship. Again, very well rounded. Moving on to the Providence Class Dreadnought, we're going to see a few changes here. First thing is, we'll start at the top. We are going to lose some of our anti-squadron firepower. This is a ship that's more dedicated towards bringing down enemy ships than bringing down enemy squadrons. And one of the things that's going to make this really, really well work is the fact that it's got a little bit more dice at long range. In the side arcs, we've got an extra red. We do sacrifice a blue to get that red, but at least we're going to have more consistent damage, since our long-range red dice are always going to be coming into play anytime we're taking a shot. So even at long range, you're going to have more dice than you would anywhere else. Now, another thing that makes this ship very, very different is its upgrades that we have at the bottom. You'll notice we lose a couple of important things. We do lose the fleet command, which is a pretty big deal. That means that you're kind of losing a lot of the support options that you had before. We still do have offensive retrofit. Like I said, this version can also be a carrier. It can definitely do that. But especially also with weapons team, we are also gaining a weapons team here. And weapons team is very versatile. It can be from everything from anti-ship firepower to anti-squadron firepower. And that is that's going to give you some options to build this, because I have certainly run this ship to support squadrons before. It's without the fleet command ability, you have some restrictions, but not all squadron builds require fleet command. Fleet command can actually be for concentrate or intensify firepower as well. So again, you have a lot of different options here, but what makes this one less a carrier is the rest of the upgrades you see down here. In addition to the same holy trinity of upgrades, we do have ordnance for those black dice upgrades. We do have ion cannon for those blue dice upgrades, but we have 2 turbo laser upgrades. Now, there's very few ships in the game that have 2 turbo laser upgrades. And this gives this ship a lot of different options, and we're going to talk about some of those build options. But I always love having a double turbo laser, because it just means like, oh, now I can, in addition to anything else, I can also put XI7 on there, or I can also put something else. And there's so many good options now too. We've had a ton of great options, and as a matter of fact, this particular wave of Star Wars Armada brought us some new turbo laser options that you might want to consider when building a ship like this. So let's talk about the different titles. We have some different titles available for this ship. We've got the Invisible Hand, we've got the Lucid Voice, and the Invincible. And of course, you may remember some of these. Of course, this one was from Admiral Trench's ship. The Invisible Hand was General Grievous's ship. I don't know who was in charge of the Lucid Voice. I probably should know. If you know who that is, let me know down in the comments section. So the Invisible Hand we'll talk about first. It is an expensive title at 9 points. This one is going to definitely be a squadron-based title. Gives you a couple of interesting things that you can do with this. So it says, while deploying fleets, if you are in the play area, when you would deploy a squadron with Swarm, you may set that squadron aside next to your ship card instead. You may set aside up to 5 squadrons in this way. And then the second part of it is when you do a squadron command, hence that little squadron symbol with the colon after it, for each squadron you would activate with this command, you may place one of your set-aside squadrons within distance 3. It cannot move this activation, and if it has AI, increase its AI value by 1. So this is a couple of different things. Invisible Hand is a very interesting title, and it has a little quirk also to it. It's similar in some ways to a card we've seen in the past called Rapid Launch Base, which kind of lets you deploy fighters mid-game as opposed to just starting with them already out in space. But this one does a little differently because it lets you do this during deployment, so you get to like load them up at the beginning of the game, and that's kind of, as you become an advanced player, you'll realize the different things that go along with deployment advantage, and this one hurts you a little bit less there. However, and this is a big however, you have to be on the board already. So Invisible Hand really only helps you out with deployment if you don't mind having to actually deploy your Invisible Hand first. And that really kind of, in my opinion, kind of defeats the purpose of gaining deployment advantage of that. So instead of thinking about it as a deployment advantage card, I tend to think of it as a deluxe rapid launch bay that kind of helps mitigate the damage done to you by doing it. So you get a little bit. So I like Invisible Hand if you maybe have another higher value target ship that you want to deploy afterwards, or if you're running some type of objective set or build that doesn't care where you deploy. It's especially good if you have an objective card that lets you force your opponent to deploy everything first, and then you go after that. Then it can kind of defeat that whole obstacle where you kind of have to drop this thing first and your opponent knows where to swarm in on. But then the other part of it is so when you've got these squadrons loaded aboard, you then get to drop them out. Now, the interesting quirk, there was actually a rules reference update on the AMG rules forum, and this was a surprise to me at first. But apparently, when you are dropping the squadrons that are loaded up with an Invisible Hand, first off, they get a bonus AI, which is kind of cool, especially if you want to drop them out and they're going to do some anti-squadron stuff or whatever. I like that. The extra die for them. Groovy. Very groovy. But they have to be deployed within that distance 3 ring. Now, I'm not going to get into why specifically it has to be like in a donut shape. There's basically a donut of range 3. So in other words, you can't drop them at range 1 or range 2. They have to be within the 3 ring. Now, I don't think that's how this card was intended when it was initially created. I don't think that's how it is, but I think this boils down to based on some rules wording. Now, for your kitchen table games, if you want to just play it, drop it for anywhere from 1, 2 to 3, because for me, within always meant up to, but not past range 3, whereas at range 3 would mean, there. But according to the way that this works, tournament rules, right now, it is currently has to be within that range 3 donut, which is interesting. Now, that may change at some point. I would imagine an FAQ or something like that when it comes out will kind of clarify this. But currently, that's the current rule wording for Invisible Hand. Just an interesting little tidbit that I didn't even know initially, and I learned a few months ago. So that is pretty interesting. So that can potentially create some distractions. I tend to think of it right now thematically is that it's just launching them out so fast they can't stop too soon. So that takes them until about distance 3 before they can finally slow down and get oriented. So there you go. Let's talk about Lucid Voice. This is a very interesting title and one I like a lot more than Invisible Hand. It's an 8-point title, so also very expensive. It says, treat your rear hull zone's printed battery armament as 3 red dice. Now, if you remember, let's go back. Both of these versions have a red, a blue, and a black. So that's going to change what you see here to 3 red. I mean, obviously, you're not going to take a marker and write it in. You got to use your imagination. The battery armament of your left and right hull zones are increased by a black die and decreased by a blue die. Now, this is very, very interesting. So again, it's not adding any extra dice. It's just transforming them. And what this does is something I think is very, very cool. So it gives you a really strong rear arc, which I think is kind of fun because you're not always firing behind you, but I have had times running this where I did actually get a fantastic shot behind, especially if you equip spinal armament, because then that's going to add an extra one non-printed, and I'll talk about why printed is important in a second. It's going to add another one to your rear arc, so you actually have 4 red dice in your rear arc, and if you concentrate fire, that's 5 red dice out of your rear arc. It's insane. It's really fun, just because people don't expect, people usually, most ships in this game, once you get behind them, they're toothless, right? But here's a ship that has a very strong rear arc, and so you can actually work on using that to your advantage. There are certain times, especially like turns 5 or 6 on a game that had a lot of early firepower, where maybe you're flying away, and so they have to chase you to try to kill you and get enough points to win. And if your rear arc is upgraded, they're going to have a harder time trying to trace you. So I think that's kind of cool. But the other thing is it also it deals with your side arcs, and it's going to increase your black die. So while removing a blue die from your side arcs. So which means if you go with the Dreadnought, you're not going to have any blue die. You're basically going to be 3 red, 3 black. It'd be still a little more balanced on the Carrier, but I feel like this card works a little bit better on the Dreadnought sometimes because then you're just min-maxing on black and red. Now, the cool thing about this one is when you are at long range, you're still a threat. You're at long range, doesn't change your side shots at all. And as a matter of fact, it makes you a bigger threat at long range because of the word printed at the top. Because that is where your salvo dice come from. So a Lucid Voice is really cool because it's going to mean you're going to always be rolling 3 red dice back, and when somebody attacks you, you get to counterattack with 3 red. Whereas normally at long range, you would only have the 1 red. Now there's upgrades out there that can increase your blue die range and your black die range when you're salvoing, and that's cool, but if you take this title, it means you don't have to use that, and it frees up your offensive retrofit for other things and that. And we'll talk about some more builds here in a minute. But it means so at long range, you're a threat. And then at close range, you're an even bigger threat because then you've got the extra black dice on your side. And the only place where this card is kind of not the best is at the medium range when you have somebody in blue die range, because then you can't quite hit them with your black dice. But it increases your long range threat and it increases your short range threat, and that's why I really like it. And so you can really build some cool things to go with the Lucid Voice title. I like it a lot. And then you have the Invincible for 5 points. It's our cheapest title for the Providence, and I say kind of because, well, it gives you an extra upgrade. It gives you defensive retrofit. That's cool. That's great. But then, of course, you have to fill that defensive retrofit, so that's going to, of course, then increase the cost beyond 5. Invincible is going to be interesting because if you wanted to take a Dreadnought for its specific loadout, it makes up for you sacrificing the defensive retrofit on there. But it's also really nice on the Carrier because now all of a sudden you can have 2 defensive retrofits, and that makes for a very strong and hard to kill flagship. So I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with Invincible as well. Let's talk about some build ideas. So one way I might build just a Providence without a title is just kind of focusing on the Dreadnought aspect. Maybe I want to focus on the ship killing ability, and I'm going to go with a gunnery team on here because maybe focusing on side arc shots. Right, so side arc shots sounds good. We've already got 3 red. We put enhanced armament on there. We've got an extra red in there. For our ion cannon, I'll put leading shots. So we've got 1 blue die everywhere. We always have some rerolls if we need to. For the double ion, again, like I said before, XI7. Why not? So now we don't even have to worry about the lack of accuracies as much. I don't have to spend that on the redirect. No problem. I can just target the brace or the salvo if I want. So that's always good. And then to save some points, we'll toss external racks on there. We get real close. Sometimes somebody will get around you from behind or whatever. Still make that a nice threat. We're going to have external racks works well, especially with XI7 also, and it's going to be pretty groovy. So there's, again, just a small example of a lot of the different things that you can put on this ship. And I do like the Dreadnought probably a little bit more because of that double turbo laser. It's pretty groovy. Let's talk about an invisible hand build. Invisible Hand is going to be kind of interesting here because again we're going to be doing some extra squadron stuff. Now I did cite earlier that your opponent's going to try and kill this ship. So I think we for our defensive retrofit here, let's put reinforced blast doors on there. We do have a lot of hull. Let's get some of that hull back. And if they start killing us, put Jedi Hostage on there. That's a pretty cool, one of the newer cards that came out with this. Toss out some raid tokens. Make them punish them for attacking us a little bit. And you know what? Expanded Hangar Bang. Let's increase that squadron value by 1, right? So now we can put 5 guys on there. We can drop all 5 in a single go and have some fun with that. And I was also thinking about Rune Hako. He's when you reveal a command, you may choose another friendly ship at distance 1 to 5. If you do, discard any number of command tokens from that ship, this card, or both, to gain a matching command token for each discarded token. So that can, and that can give you a lot of flexibility. You can get, extra engineering to kind of help yourself speed back up. Or if you're going full-blown carrier and you need an extra squadron command because you want some more, you can do something crazy like that. As far as like commanders that something like this can go with, they can really go with just about anybody. I found that because this ship is so well rounded, it doesn't really lend itself to only one commander. I feel like this is something that supports just about all of them. I think Grievous and Trench are both good general overall people that are good on all of the Providence builds. But it doesn't have to be that. Like they could all definitely work. I'd probably say Grievous and Trench the most for most of these builds. Let's look at a Lucid Voice build. This is one I actually really like. All right, so this is a heavily loaded Dreadnought, and what I like about this is we don't have to do all of the same, all of the upgrades that we might have done otherwise. So I particularly like what Lucid Voice does to this, and I did talk about Spinal Armament. I went ahead and put it on here. So now we have 4 red out the rear, but granted, only 3 of them are printed, so our salvo will still only give us 3. For the other turbo laser upgrade, I put DB 827 heavy turbo lasers. I think this is an auto include for Lucid Voice because you're gonna be salvoing with 3 red right back, and maybe we don't have any dice fixing for red dice. Or if you roll red dice enough, you can roll lots of blanks. Let's turn one to an automatic crit, and that's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be every time you salvo. It's gonna be great. And this particular version is actually very nice in a Grievous fleet, to be able to get that salvo back and use it multiple times in the same turn. That can be pretty fun. And then I put point defense ion cannons for our ion slot. Since we're really not focusing on blue dice very much here, we're going to lose our blue die on the sides. Well, let's just do a utility. It's like a point defense turns your ion cannon slot into a defensive slot, and so that's really great. Again, we're going to be trying to get into close range of people to take advantage of that extra black die on the side. And of course, we'll be probably pointed at them at first, and that's another reason why I like Spinal Armament. We're going to be pointed at you at the beginning, right? Trying to get close, and then once we do get close, we've got point defenses, we've got Lucid Voice, we've got external racks here, hit you really hard. We've got ordnance experts for that. Hit you really hard, and maybe hardened bulkheads for maybe we hit you so hard we physically collide with you. Hardened bulkheads is going to help with that as well, which is super fun. And then maybe you get past us, or maybe we overshoot you on the next turn. Then we got Spinal Armament for our shots out the rear. So we're gonna have shots everywhere. I think this is like, we should call this build shots. And to help with those shots, we've got Shumai, who's gonna give us even more re-rolls. She's gonna help with our red dice not being super great. We've already got ordnance experts, but maybe we try to pop external racks on the time that one of the turns that Shumai triggers, and then we've got even more re-rolls. So it's a fun type of Dreadnought build if you're going for like that ship killer. This is definitely a ship killer. Next up, I thought of a flagship build, and this is using Invincible on the carrier. We do have double defensive retrofit here. We're going to be using the new thermal shields, which is a very nice option to be able to use. And we also have electronic countermeasures, which is another really nice option. Granted, you don't always need both of those together. Of course, you could do a lot of different things in here. You could easily swap out one for the other, but it's just extra protection in case maybe a ECM is down one turn. Maybe you got thermal shields for the next. You can do a lot with that. And taking advantage of some, but maybe not every single upgrade. We give ourselves a little bit of offensive capability here. We put some quad battery turrets. We're going to go kind of slow, all right? We don't want to charge right into the middle of everything. People are going to try and get around us. We've got extra blue dice, and then we've got ways to make those blue dice work for us. We got blue dice everywhere. Let's put heavy ion emplacements out there. Yeah, come on, get close. Try and kill me. I'm going to drain your shields and then take you down. And then Wat Tambor is just overall a really good officer to have on your flagship to kind of steal those shields, eat them up, just give yourself lots of extra engineering points. This is basically, I think he works really well on board the Invincible because he helps make this ship virtually invincible. And so that could be a lot of fun. And those are just some different ways to build out Providences. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. That is going to do it for this Providence breakdown. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you guys like these breakdowns? I'm gonna try and do more. I want to wrap up all of the Clone Wars factions, and then if we like it, if you guys like it, then I'll keep doing this for not the Republic, but the Empire and the Rebellion as well. I have done some ship breakdowns before, but a lot has changed, so I think it's time to kind of update the entire library of ship breakdowns. So that's kind of why I started here, and I'll be moving into the Galactic Civil War after the Clone Wars is done. So I think that's about it. We are still doing 12 Days of Life Day. Make sure you guys enter to win that. You have to be a subscriber and leave a comment. We are going to be giving away something today. So if you stayed to the end of the video, congrats. We're giving away a Star Wars Armada expansion. This is Imperial Fighter Squadrons 2. Whoever the winner is going to get this in the mail. It can be anywhere on the planet. So I'll be shipping it to you. Anything that does not get claimed is going to roll over into Patreon. So it's an extra way to reward those amazing patrons that have helped keep this channel running. And if you're interested in checking out Patreon, there's links in the description below. But yes, so you have 30 days to claim this. Today's winner is, drumroll please, Chris Sorrentino. Congratulations, Chris. Thank you for being a subscriber and leaving a comment. And you have been chosen, so just go ahead and shoot me an email at mailcrabbok@gmail.com. I'll get your details. We'll get you squared away. And that's going to do it. If you didn't win, don't worry. There's more giveaways. We're still giving away a lightsaber also. So that's kind of cool. If you wanted something that you didn't get, you can always, there's always more chances for giveaways on Patreon as well. So, there's a bunch of other stuff over there too. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Thank you guys for your kind words. Hop in the Discord, do all that good stuff. Thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your continued support. Always remember, if you are flying through space with a snorkel, you're doing it wrong.